Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a telephonic conversation with US President Donald Trump today. This was the first phone call between the two leaders since Diwali. They exchanged views on expanding cooperation in trade, critical technologies, energy, defense and security. Also agreed to work closely to address shared challenges and advance common interests. The call is significant as it comes days after Russian President Vladimir Putin's high-profile state visit to India. Remember, earlier this year, the Trump administration had imposed an additional 25% tariff on India for buying Russian oil. India has since then drastically cut down its oil imports from Russia. There are other moving pieces as well. A trade delegation from the US, led by high-ranking officials at the USTR, is in Delhi for talks. Both sides are eyeing a framework deal by year-end, but there is no clarity yet. United States top trade envoy Jamieson Greer has told the US Senate that India has been a tough nut to crack and there is resistance over certain crops. Joining me on the program to take this forward is Atul Keshap, President of the US-India Business Council, and Mohan Kumar, former Indian Ambassador to France. He's currently the Dean at O.P. Jindal Global University. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Ambassador Keshap, if I can come to you first, how do you see this conversation between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump coming at a very critical juncture? We don't have a deal as yet. There is a trade delegation negotiating in India right now. What does this phone call indicate?
Parikshit, I see some positive momentum. We not only had the Deputy United States Trade Representative Rick Schweitzer in Delhi this week, there was also the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, Allison Hooker, who was in Delhi. I would note that, we have a newly confirmed U.S. Ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, who will be taking up duties in India early in the new year. I noted the remarks by Ambassador Greer in his testimony before the Congress. And of course, now you have the conversation between the two leaders. So this is all positive momentum. I noticed that there was a quad counterterrorism engagement earlier last week. And Ambassador Quatra is making the rounds in Washington, talking to various stakeholders, including on Capitol Hill. Your chief economic advisor, Mr. Nageshwaran, mentioned that many of the toughest issues had been resolved. Ambassador Greer said that this proposal that's on the table is the best that the United States has ever received from India. And so I think that the two leaders are now realizing that something very positive is in their grasp, that the two greatest democracies on earth, which rely on each other so much for technology and talent, actually could make a landmark and historic trade deal that would be to the benefit of both peoples. And I think it is in that spirit that this phone call took place.
Right. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, do you feel that this phone call will possibly lead to a trade deal? We saw Jamieson Greer saying that India has given us the best offer ever. Piyush Goyal said that if this was the best offer, then, and if you're happy with it, then sign on the dotted line. So do you believe that this call could finally do the trick?
Thank you very much, Parikshit. What I do believe is that the two countries are now doing the last lap of what has been an extremely difficult period in the relationship. It is my sense that this was never entirely about trade. It's about a lot of other things, including the Russian oil and including factors which were non-trade, and I will not get into that. My sense is that I think both leaders and both countries realize that there is a lot more to be gained by the two countries cooperating together. The other reason why I'm optimistic is because even during this tough period, as Ambassador Keshap helpfully pointed out, nothing really stopped. They had the Foreign Office consultations. The two countries signed a 10-year defense agreement. Allison Hooker was here. I happened to meet her along with a bunch of people. She said, just have patience. This relationship will get back. And I think all of it is coming together. So it is my sense that the fact the two leaders were able to speak, number one, they described it as warm. Secondly, they expressed satisfaction at the momentum of the bilateral ties. It makes me think the last lap now for the trade deal, and that should really unlock the full potential of the Indo-American relationship.
All right, that's an important point. You're saying that Allison Hooker has said that the India-US relationship will come back on track. Let me ask you about some of the finer details of this statement. There was no exact mention, Ambassador Keshap, of the trade deal. The statement has said that the two leaders reviewed progress on the India-US Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership. They spoke about expanding cooperation in trade, critical technologies, energy, defense and security. They've decided to work together closely to address shared challenges and advance common interests and remain in touch. Do you feel that over the last few weeks, we've been hearing that the trade deal negotiation is as much as over? They were only discussing the legal contours, the commas, the full stops in the deal. Has anything changed in the White House? Does Donald Trump want new items to be inserted in the trade agreement? What's your sense?
Can't speak for the president, Parikshit, but I think that the two sets of negotiators have done a lot of work, and they have hammered together a very sort of tempting and positive agreement. So I think that both sides have had a moment to think about it. There's been a period of reflection. But let's acknowledge the realities of the situation. You know, the United States wants to forge a stronger relationship with partners around the world. India is a rising and important country. Look at all of the CEOs of top American companies, all members of the United States-India Business Council, who have been flocking to India and making major commitments with the Prime Minister and with the government of India about foreign direct investment into India. Amazon, 35 billion, Microsoft, 17.5 billion, Google, 15 billion. These are big numbers, and they reflect the confidence that the business community has in the rise of India, in the economic reform agenda of the Prime Minister, of the efforts by India to address ease and speed of doing business and to make itself a really attractive investment destination. And as India rises in world affairs, as its GDP rises, as it becomes a developed country, it is a natural ally and partner and friend of any democracy around the world, including the United States. So I think for the two leaders, this is an historic opportunity. Ambassador Gore is about to go out to India. I think he's going to play a positive role in leading the direction of the relationship. Ambassador Quattro is certainly doing so. So then the question is, can the two governments grasp this opportunity? I think that, as Ambassador Kumar said, they are getting close to that, and that there is hope that this now makes sense for both sides to go ahead.
Right. Ambassador Kumar, we're reading a statement from the remarks which have been made by the Indian government. They said Prime Minister and President Trump underlined the importance of sustaining momentum in shared efforts to enhance bilateral trade. Now, what are the concessions do you think the Indian government can give to the US in order to address their concerns? A lot has been spoken about agriculture and dairy, and you had Jamieson Greer saying that India has been a tough nut to crack. They have been resistant when it comes to export of raw crops, dairy and meat products to India. So do you think that India will manage to have a deal without all these items, or we would have to possibly give some concessions on low-hanging fruits, such as pecan nuts for that matter, maybe almonds, maybe certain niche dairy products?
So Parikshit, as a former trade negotiator, there are 100 ways in which these things can be finessed in a trade deal. One, you can label stuff. Supposing you have concerns about a genetically modified product which comes from the United States, you can label the product as such and leave it to the consumers to buy or not buy, keeping in mind your concerns about genetically modified food. The other thing you can do is a tariff rate quota, in which you say a certain limited quantity of ag products from the United States will come into India every year, and that will come in at a reduced duty, and others will attract the normal duty. The third thing that can happen really is labeling of goods so that consumers can decide. Or you try and see ways in which you allow different products to come in, but then have a transition period during which these products can be accepted by the Indian consumers. So there are many ways in which the trade agreement can be finessed. I see actually the trade agreement is more or less complete. It's really a presidential call that President Trump has to make. And I think I find it extremely comforting that Jamieson Greer is bold enough to say that this is the best offer Delhi has put on the table. This has been my sense for a while. So I don't really think the trade agreement will be a serious obstacle. I think when the two leaders talk of sustaining momentum in trade, they are talking about the Compact Initiative, which talks of reaching $500 million trade by 2030. And that, I think, seems to be the target that both countries have set for themselves. So really, this is the last lap. It's now President Trump's call. I don't believe India can change very much, frankly. Everything that has to be negotiated has already been negotiated. And the fact that in the latest national security strategy, the US is looking at Russia in a very, very different way, Parikshit, should actually enable India to have more margin for maneuver in its own relationship with Russia. United States is talking about re-establishing strategic stability with Russia. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are negotiating with Kremlin on how to bring Russia back from the cold in terms of economy, trade, investment, removing sanctions, etc. So frankly, India's relationship with Russia now will be much less of a concern. So to conclude, I see the planetary conditions all coming together, frankly, for the relationship to be put back on track.
Right. Okay, Ambassador Keshap, would you share Ambassador Mohan Kumar's sentiments that we're now in the final lap, and is this possibly a matter of days now, if not weeks? And secondly, how does this agreement between India and the US, which has taken a long time, we're giving legal text to it, different from other deals that the US has struck?
So first of all, Parikshit, I've been consistently saying that this is a deal that needs to be struck between the two leaders, and I'm delighted that they spoke. I think it sends a positive signal. I will click my various beads and pray for the best, because I think it would be good for both countries. I do think that the US and India need to have a functional and friendly relationship. We are the two largest countries on earth and the largest democracies on earth that need to be as close to each other as possible for the happiness of humanity in the 21st century. So it's incumbent upon both leaders to close this deal, in my view, and I hope that they do. As regards this particular deal versus all the other deals, my sense of it is that this is a serious deal. We've heard rumors that it runs to hundreds of pages, that it reflects very, very, very serious work by both sets of negotiators who are very sober and serious people and champions of their nations and their economies. So I get the sense this is not some cocktail napkin trade deal. This is a serious affair, and it reflects real work by two very serious countries that I think will yield a lot of dividends in future, because it will send a signal of psychological confidence in one another that will unlock even more FDI and prosperity in both directions. Let's not forget, there are a lot of Indian companies that invest in America, as American companies are doing in India.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Keshap and Ambassador Mohan Kumar, for joining us on the program for a very important discussion. We've run out of time, but this is a story we'll continue to track very closely. But another